Hey, Shalom, Makiam, Shalom. First off, I want to give all praise and glory to
Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Kakadash.
Send double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to all of you out there. This is another GMS Dallas in class. And we felt it was appropriate since Hanukkah is here, start coming in tomorrow evening, that we kind of go over that story and talk about that story of our forefathers, Jews, Maccabees, and his brothers and that family, and them standing up, against the heathen, standing up for the law, statutes, commandments, the preservation of our nation, and they are mighty heroes that we all look up to in faith and willingness to fight to the end. So coming into this season of Hanukkah, it is a time of victory mindset, a time of celebrating victory over our enemies. And even though we're still in the battle right now, we're still in the battle a lot right now, in like manner fighting for the salvation of our people. We have joy knowing that there's a promise that was made, and through that promise and through the sacrifice that Yahweh Shai made, we have hope for an opportunity up out of here. And so, what better time than now to read a story like this, I wanted to open up with its first mention in the book of John 10 and 22, if a brother could read that.
God, this is John chapter 10 and verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem, the feast of dedication, and it was winter.
Yeah.
And Yahweh Shai walked in the temple of Solomon's porch.
Yeah, man. So even during this time, you see when the Lord was on the scene, when Yahweh Shai was on the scene, the celebration of the Feast of Dedication, or Hanukkah, was prevalent and relevant. And so this is something that our people understood and knew, and something we'll talk about today. And so I want to get this piece real quick just to kind of set a backdrop of the time that we were in during Hanukkah. You had Alexander the Great, who had defeated the Persian Empire, right? He, when you read First Maccabees, the first chapter, it talks about him dying very young and passing on that empire to his 4 generals. When you read in the book of Daniel, the 11th chapter, that really kind of goes over what's known as the Syrian Wars, a series of battlings and fightings between 2 of those generals' families, right? The Seleucids and the Ptolemies. Mm-hmm. During the time of Hanukkah, the Seleucid Empire had control and dominance over what we know as Judea, all right, which is a region in where the Israelites dwelled at that time, okay? So there's these political strains over this region. It is a hub of traffic. Merchandising is always passing through this region from east to west. So it is a critical spot that all empires wanted to control. That region of Israel is always the reason why it's hostile, because it's a hotbed of trade, which controls kingdoms. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna read this. This is worldhistory.org. You can go to Ancient EU. All right, worldhistory.org or Ancient EU. And I'm in an article called the Maccabean Revolt. I'm in a place called the Maccabean Revolt, and I'm skipping down to where it says the Seleucid takeover. All right, and this reads, in 198 BCE, all of the goodwill of the Jewish community towards the governing body turned to hatred as the Seleucid Empire defeated the Ptolemies, taking control of all Judea. As the Seleucid Empire expanded, so too did their notion of Hellenism. All right? So their notion of Hellenism was more aggressive. The Seleucids under Antiochus III controlled much of the Arabian Peninsula, forcibly converting many of its new populace to Greek culture and religion. And the intent in that the hegemony continued as they took Jerusalem. So if you're following along now and you're taking this seriously, you can type in map of the successor kingdoms. You can type in Seleucid Empire map. so you can get a view of the region for which they control.
If I may add, there was a nice little commentary on that verse that we read, John 10 and
Absolutely,
22,
yeah.
that David Guzik had. I figured it'd be good to bring out as well.
Bring it out, bro.
Okay, so when you...
So this is David Gusik's commentary on John chapter 10, verse 22 that we just read.
Yep, specifically that verse. It says, under the portion where it says the Feast of Dedication, it says, this is also known as Hanukkah, which celebrated the cleansing and rededication of the temple after 3 years of desecration by Antiochus Epiphanes, king of Syria, in 164 BC. It says, after Antiochus attacked, and if you want to make any points, you know what I'm saying, stop, but it says, after Antiochus attacked Jerusalem, he instituted a reign of terror upon the Jews of the city. And here's some notes. It says, Antiochus stole millions in gold and silver from the temple treasury. Antiochus said that possessing a copy of the law was punishable by death.
Wow.
Antiochus said that circumcising a child was punishable by death. Under Antiochus, mothers who did circumcise their children were to be crucified with their children hanging around their necks.
And you can read about this all throughout the Maccabees, man.
Yeah.
How vicious of a rulership, Antiochus had, and in like manner, man, that's why people are thinking Biden might be another one of those Antiochans. You know what I mean? He coming with that type of energy, But we're gonna see. Okay, so going back into this article, just to kind of continue to land back on what the brother Anaj just brought out there in the David Guzik commentary. It reads. It says Antiochus wanted to Hellenize the Jewish community. His aim was to remove any features of Judaism that could define it from the Greek religion and other accepted monotheistic religions. Because of the benefits of the Greek culture, which included economic integration between all of the Greek states, right, joining in with the beast, right, and the pressure of regime, many Jewish people accepted Hellenism, right? So that process of indoctrinating people, making them drink the wine and rat, all of that type of stuff was being perfected all the way early in the Greek rulership, right?
It's happening now.
And it's definitely happening now. It says the already strained relations between a pious Jewish people that did not accept Hellenism and the Seleucid Empire were shattered when Antiochus Epiphanes adopted his father's policy of universal Hellenization, but took it to new heights. As Epiphanes looked at Alexander the Great of Macedon and aspired to have his name in the history books alongside him, he needed to distinguish himself above his predecessors. The best way to do that, he thought, was to enforce that Greek culture on all of the Jewish population. To enforce the Greek culture on all of the Jewish population, a feat that had so far been elusive. He accepted a bribe and approved the takeover of Jason of the Onadian family to the now de facto client position of high priesthood. Okay, and you can read all about this, the whole full story, in Maccabees, right? It says Antiochus and Jason's power as the high priest over Jewish people to build a gymnasium and just outside the temple, with that strengthening the Greek culture in the heartland of the Jewish community. It was a symbol of Greek Hellenism, and having it outside the temple showed the Jewish community exactly who was in charge. The Hellenistic idea of masculinity was shown in the rule that one must be naked to enter the gymnasium. Being naked in public was strictly forbidden under Jewish laws. So any Jewish person that went into the gymnasium violated the laws of the covenant. The state understood this and therefore made it a legal requirement for anybody who could afford it to go at least once. So forcing them to break the laws, right?
That's what Esau's doing now.
Yeah, for sure.
If you want to work then you gotta break the law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They still have it where everybody get naked like that in the field house, man. The simulants of the gymnasium. So this is that same culture all over again. It says this was a method of making the state bigger and of greater authority than any other religion other than the Greek polytheism. It says, thus many Jewish people fell in line and acquiesced to the regime. Okay? Skipping on down. It says, although many of the Jewish community were at this point Hellenized, the persecution of the Jewish people and the destruction of practicing Judaism united the Israelites in Judea. The Israelite people needed someone to lead them. Then, when Antiochus sent some of his officers to the town of Modin to lay down his tyranny and enact the oppressive laws that he had enforced, he was met by a local Jewish country priest named Mattathias. This turned out to be very portentous meeting. The country priest was ordered to fulfill his duty to the state and be the first to sacrifice an animal to an altar of an idol. He refused, and when another Jewish man stepped forward to do it, he murdered the officer. Tearing down the idol, Mattathias preached, "Let everyone who is zealous for the law and who stands by the covenant follow me." 1 Maccabees 2:27. The Jewish people had their leader. He and his 5 sons, John, Simon, Judah, Eleazar, and Jonathan, rallied the Israelite population. In 167 BCE, the Israelite people rose up with Mattathias as their leader. Soon after 167 BCE, the family of Mattathias became known as the Maccabees or the Hammer. They recruited tough Israelite people on the way and began a guerrilla war as they started to take over the northern villages of Judea. They tore down the altars of idols, killed those who worshipped them, many being Hellenistic Jews. Mattathias died in 166 BCE, but just before death, he left Judah in charge of his army. Okay, so that's the backdrop of basically this scene that's leading into these battles between Judah's Maccabees, his group of people, and the Greek Seleucid Empire, Antiochus' armies. Mm-hmm. Now, if we skip over into 1 Maccabees, the 3rd chapter, it's the 3rd and 4th chapter basically give you the list of the fights and the battles that lead into what we understand as Hanukkah. Mm-hmm. So we're going to read that. Mm-hmm. Okay?
All right, this is 1 Maccabees chapter 3, verse 1. It says, "Then his son Judas, called Maccabeus, rose up in his stead, and all his brethren helped him, and so did all they that held with his father, and they fought with cheerfulness in the battle of Israel." So, verse 3, "So he gat his people great honor, and put on a breastplate as a giant, and girt his warlike harness about him, and he made battles, protecting the host with his sword."
Yeah, so now he becoming a cult-like figure, winning battles, and these battles a lot of them they were outnumbered. You got to remember this was guerrilla warfare. Mm-hmm. So Judas Maccabees and his family, they knew the terrain, they knew the land. You run up, you get done up if you know how to right amount of people. Because we're gonna come. Oh, you think this hill is over here, but we know this passageway over here. We can get behind you real quick and just slaughter you, right? So this is what Judas Maccabees is doing. Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead.
Gad was real good at that. That's
100%. Yeah, when the same thing happened when Esau came over here, Gad was picking them off, man. No, there's stories of Gad being able to shoot 10 arrows in a second,
precision,
and without a saddle, and could slide and had the leg strength to hold themselves underneath the horse and shoot from underneath the horse. Damn. Like Gad was on it, you know what I'm saying? Yep. Like, trying to shoot him, he fall to the side, come back up.
Damn, riding the horse.
They could go side to side on the horse.
Yeah, riding the horse by itself. Yeah, riding the horse by itself.
So you think you just run up and kill him? No, bro, dude, done move to the side, hitting you like this,
Damn.
So Jake was warriors, man. Okay.
Continuing on in verse 4, it says, in his acts he was like a lion, and like a lion's whelp roaring for his prey. For he pursued the wicked and sought them out, and burnt up those that vexed his people.
Burnt up those that vexed his people. Go ahead.
Verse 6 says, therefore the wicked shrunk for fear of him, and all the workers of iniquity were troubled, because salvation prospered in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 7, he grieved also many kings, and made Jacob glad with his acts, and his memorial was blessed forever. Moreover, he went through the cities of Judah, destroying the ungodly out of them, and turning away wrath from Israel.
Mm-hmm. So anybody that was a whole ass nigga, sellouts, everybody was getting killed.
Mm-hmm.
Only the pure of heart was being kept.
Yep.
Judgment through Judas Maccabees was, flowing through this whole region of Judea. So city by city, they clearing everything up.
Mm-hmm. All right, it says in verse 9, so that he was renowned unto the utmost part of the earth, and he received unto him such as were ready to perish. Which the scriptures say, if you recently got married, or you worry that you're not going to be able to overtake the enemy to go back home. You know what I'm saying? So those that were ready to perish were those that were willing to die for the cause that Judas Maccabees was fighting for, which was ultimately Israel being a sovereign nation.
Yeah. Those that were ready to perish, they were ready to go to war. They were ready to fight for, just like you said, sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
Just like today, just like now, right? Mm-hmm. Where you got men ready to what? Declare a testimony. Meaning you're willing to die for the sake of the truth. You know?
Yep. It says in verse 10, then Apollonius gathered the Gentiles together, and a great host out of Samaria, to fight against Israel. Mm-hmm. Which thing, when Judas perceived, he went forth to meet him, and so he smote him and slew him. Many also fell down slain, but the rest fled. Verse 12.
So he's scattering their armies.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Go ahead.
Verse 12 says, wherefore Judas took their spoils, and Apollonius' sword also, and therewith he fought all his life long.
Oh man, took his sword. He must have had a dope sword.
That's like David.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Took Goliath's sword, cut his head off.
Yeah.
He
kept it.
It says in verse 13, now when Saron, a prince of the army of Syria, heard say that Judas had gathered unto him a multitude and company of the faithful to go out with him to war, he said, I will get me a name and honor in the kingdom, for I will go fight with Judas and them that are with him, who despise the king's commandment.
Mm-hmm.
So he made him ready to go up, and there went with him a mighty host of the ungodly to help him, mm-hmm. and to be avenged of the children of Israel. Verse 16, and when he came near to the going up of Beth-horon, Judas went forth to meet him with a small company. Mm-hmm. So it looks like, based off what I'm reading here, that this guy Saron, pretty much was a part of the Greeks, but they were on the side of the Seleucians, and mm-hmm. They were pretty much trying to go and get vengeance for the Israelites, the Hellenized Israelites that Judas was killing too.
So basically they were being, when you understand the story, they were being, they were working for the Seleucid Empire. Mm-hmm. They thought they were big enough to take down the Maccabees, right, because the Maccabees didn't have a large number. Mm-hmm. So they was like under the assumption that they could take probably troops of 8,000-9,000 men and just mm-hmm. go take them down. Mm-hmm. And they're just losing every single time. All of these different generals that are stepping up, these little minor generals stepping up mm-hmm. to the plate. Right. They get dusted. Mm-hmm. So, like during the time of Rome didn't just come get you. They sent out one of their mm-hmm. side groups to go handle you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's not working. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
Verse 16 it says, and when he came near to the going up of Beth-horon, Judas went forth to meet him with a small company. Verse 17, who when they saw the host coming to meet them, said unto Judas, how shall we be able, being so few, to fight against so great a multitude and so strong?
See that? Mm-hmm. So I like, dang, it's a lot of them, Judas. Let's go ahead.
Right. It says, how shall we be able, being so few, to fight against so great a multitude and so strong? seeing we are ready to faint with fasting all this day.
Uh-huh.
Unto whom Judas answered, It is no hard matter for many to be shut up in the hands of a few, and with the Most High, the power of heaven, it is all one to deliver a great multitude or a small company.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 19, For the victory of battle standeth not in the multitude of the host, but strength cometh from heaven.
Yeah, so he basically is like, look, man, with the Most High, we can defeat any number.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
It says in verse 20, They come against us in much pride and iniquity to destroy us, and our wives and children to spoil us. But we fight for our lives and our laws.
Mm-hmm.
Wherefore the Lord Yahweh Shai himself will overthrow them before our face. And as for you, be ye not afraid of them.
Yeah, so Judas is like, he's giving a speech of all speeches.
Mm-hmm.
Locker room speech of a lifetime.
Man, God.
You know?
Yep.
You don't fear.
We must protect this.
You know, we got our wives and our kids behind us, man. Both sides with us, man. They needed to hear that, you know. And we have to make sure to tell ourselves that during this time, you know, the odds may seem like they're against us, but hey, we got Yahweh Shem Yahshua with us. Ain't no power that's gonna overcome that, man. Ain't no device, no crafty counsel, none of it. You know. Go ahead.
God. It says in verse 21, it says, But we fight for our lives and our laws, wherefore the Lord himself will overthrow them before our face.
I was gonna say, you see, our forefathers stood for something, man.
Yeah.
They were like, absolutely not, man.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's too much, but nigga, nah, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nah. You got it.
It says, verse 23, it says, Now as soon as he had left off from speaking, he leapt suddenly upon them, and so Saran and his hosts were overthrown before him.
Go ahead.
Verse 24, And they pursued them from the going down of Beth Horon unto the plain, where were slain about 800 men of them, and the residue fled into the land of the Philistines.
Go ahead.
Then began the fear of Judas and his brethren, and an exceeding great dread to fall upon the nations round about him.
Mm-hmm.
Insomuch as his fame came unto the king, and all nations talked of the battles of Judas.
Go ahead.
Now when the king Antiochus heard of these things, he was full of indignation. Wherefore he sent and gathered together all the forces of his realm, even a very strong army.
All right, so hold up. So now I'm going back to ancient.eu, and then what we're going to do is we're going to skip over to chapter 4. But now you're going to read chapter 4. All right, and so when you go back to ancient.eu, continue to read underneath the subsection of rebellion of the Maccabean revolts. Skip down to the second paragraph. It says, Antiochus underestimated the severity of the rebellion and the size and strength of the Israelite armies. Instead of crushing them with the full force of his armies, he set his less effective generals on them. Yep, Judas Maccabees, a wise and courageous military general, defeated them with consummate ease. Antiochus was made to look foolish. As a response, he set out to exterminate the Jewish population in Judea. Antiochus set forth his most glorified general, Lysias, and around 60,000 soldiers to try and do just that. Okay? So let's skip over to chapter 4. I think that's what I want to do. Let me see. Yeah, 4 and 1.
4-1.
Yeah.
First Maccabees 4-1. Then took Gorgias 5,000 men, and 1,000 of the best horsemen, and removed out of the camp by night, to the end he might rush in upon the camp of the Jews and smite them suddenly. And the man of the fortress were his guides. Now then Judas heard thereof, he himself removed, and the valiant man with him, that he might smite the king's army, which was in Emmaus. While as yet the forces were dispersed from the camp, in the mean season came Gorgias by night into the camp of Judas. And when he found no man there, he sought them out in the mountains, where he said, "These fellows flee from us." But as soon as it was day, Judas showed himself in the plains with 3,000 men, who nevertheless had neither armor nor sword to their minds. And they saw the camp of the heathen, that it was strong and well harnessed, and compassed around about the horsemen, and these were experts of war. Then said Judas to the men that were with him, "Fear ye not their multitude, neither be ye afraid of their assault. Remember how our fathers were delivered in the Red Sea, when Pharaoh pursued them with an army. And now therefore let us cry unto the heavens, if peradventure the Lord will have mercy upon us, and remember the covenant of our fathers, and destroy the host before our face this day."
I got a quick precept.
Uh-huh.
This is going to be the book of Romans, chapter 15, verse 4. And it reads, it's like, Romans chapter 15, verse 4, it says, "For whatsoever things are written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope." So, that was, just made me think about that when Judas mentioned acts of hope.
Yeah.
In the midst of imminent death, what it looked like to be imminent death, he was like, "Look, remember what the Lord did in the time of Moses in the Red Sea, how he delivered us from the hand of Pharaoh."
Yeah.
The Lord is able to deliver few, by his power. That's the Lord likes magnifying his power like that. To show forth, look, in the hands of few, I'm gonna glorify. It glorifies his name doing that.
Yeah, and we can go into those same things, like with these things being written aforetime for our learning. When we in these sticky situations, we can be like, "You remember Samson, man? Bro, Samson was through, but Lord came through." So we can go back on those accounts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Same way Judas did. Remember David, remember this, remember that. Now we got more accounts to fall back on.
That's
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
what was stated in the first Maccabees 2 and 50 on down.
Yeah.
He gave example after example
Yeah.
of all those times they were in imminent danger, but they were delivered.
Yep, just like I said, who have called on Yahweh Hashem Yahushai and been confounded?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Nobody,
That's right.
undefeated.
Yeah.
That was on that precept.
Okay, let's go back.
All right, back in 1 Maccabees 4 and verse 11, it says, "And so all the heathen may know that there is one who delivereth and saveth Israel. Then the strangers lifted up their eyes and saw them coming over against them, wherefore they went out of the camp to battle. And they that were with Judas sounded their trumpets. So they joined battle, and the heathens being discomfited fled into the plains. Howbeit all the hindmost of them were slain with the sword, for they pursued unto Gazara, and unto the plains of Idumea, and Azrathus, and Jamena, I think I'm saying that right. Jamnia, it's like it. It says, so that there were slain of them upon 3,000 men.
Yeah, so they're basically able to go and duck off into the hills, come back, guerrilla warfare approach, surround them, blowing trumpets, woo, making it, you know what I mean? Making them like scatter. They can't get their battle cries together because the noise of Judas's army is just completely throwing them off. All of their normal regiment formations, they're fucking up their formations, and the Maccabean armies are just running through them. They know how to move quick.
Yep.
They know how to go and get in and out. So they in and out, just decimating these different Greek armies. All right, and so it's just getting worse and worse and worse to the point to where Judas is freaking famous. People thought that he was the savior.
People thought he was the Messiah.
It was getting to the point to where it's like, this is the Messiah that we was all looking for.
No, for real. Yeah, it's real.
They thought that he was fulfilling the prophecies. Like, okay, this is him. This is him. This is how much ass he was kicking.
Judas was
To where
That's
people
a lot
with
of ass.
unbelievable armies that he's defeating. Like, take 3,000-4,000 men and slaughter up 10,000-12,000 men. what? You know what I mean? Ridiculously smart. Like, knew how to get in, knew how to get out, knew when to engage, knew when to run. So they would run for a minute before they would engage some of these armies. So when the armies, so that's why they was like, man, we don't know we can defeat them. Shit, we tired. We've been fasting. You've been having us hiding in these rocks.
Yeah. You know,
So they going to Judas like worried about their own physical. Like, I don't even know if I'm strong enough to fight these dudes at this point.
Can you imagine going into a war and you in the middle of the fight you fast?
Yeah, like because you're having to just.
well,
You're having to just duck off in a hill for 2 days.
Yeah,
and just-
exactly.
It's good to say that.
and wait.
They
And
said
then
they would eat the herbs.
Yeah.
in the
So they would
mountains.
just stay in the mountains, stay under the brush.
Yeah.
This army's walking through the lands. They don't know that Judas Maccabee's literally already surrounded.
Yeah.
Just off, ducked off in the hills somewhere, eating grass, waiting.
I was saying then when you fasting, you also you in more of an angelic state.
Yeah.
When you fasting,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. So it's tired and it's hungry and all. They needed to be pure for the Lord to use them.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying. I can't have you eat beef jerky and all this
Yeah,
while you
yeah.
finna fight
Yeah,
my
you-
battles.
you
No,
too damn
I need you right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
You know, you hangry.
Yeah.
You hangry. You rip up the whole house.
You know what I'm saying.
All right, so we can go back and we can read
Snickers.
and continue on. So I just want to give a little bit of that.
What verse is it?
You got it. You in verse what?
16.
16, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
you just hit it. Just keep reading.
All right, verse 16 it says, "This done, Judas returned again with his host from pursuing them, and said to the people, Be not greedy of the spoils, inasmuch as there is a battle before us. So Gorgias and his host are here by us in the mountains. But stand ye now against our enemies and overcome them, and after this ye may boldly take the spoils. As Judas was yet speaking these words, there appeared a part of them looking out of the mountain, who when they perceived that the Jews had put their host to flight and were burning the tents, for the smoke that was seen declared what was done, when therefore they perceived these things, they were sore afraid, and seeing also the host of Judas in the plains ready to fight, they fled every one into the land of the strangers.
Yeah, so Judas was keeping them sharp. He was like, hey, don't trip. They still here. You know, we can have to fight at any moment. You know, go ahead.
Then Judas returned to the spoils to spoil the tents, where they got much gold and silver and blue silk and purple of the sea and great riches.
Blue silk, very hard to come by. Very, very expensive commodity. Just because that dye is hard to get.
Very rare.
Go ahead.
Verse 24, after this they went home and sung a song of thanksgiving and praised the Lord in heaven, because it was good, because his mercy endured forever. Thus Israel had a great deliverance that day. Now all the strangers that had escaped came and told Lysias what had happened, who when he heard thereof was confounded and discouraged, because neither such things as he would were done unto Israel, nor such things as the king commanded him were come to pass.
Right. So Israel is taking W's, and his God Antiochus Epiphanes is taking L's. Right. Go ahead.
The next year, therefore, following Lysias gathered together 70,000 choice men on foot and 5,000 horsemen, that he might subdue them. So they came into Idumea and pitched their tent in Bethshura, and Judas met them with 10,000 men. And when he saw the mighty army, he prayed and said, Blessed art thou, O Savior of Israel.
So they in the land of Idumea. They met them with 10K, 60K versus 10K.
Man.
It says, who didst pour the violence of the mighty man by the hand of thy servant David, and gavest the host of strangers into the hand of Jonathan the son of Saul and his armor bearer. Shut up this army in thy hand of thy people Israel, and let them be confounded in their power and horsemen.
Yeah, man. So he draws strength, just like you read about in Romans the 15th chapter, from the lessons and the stories of his forefathers. You know, and we in like manner got to do that same thing too, man.
Mm-hmm.
When we get discouraged, when we come into a situation. Now imagine Judas Maccabees. Imagine yourself in a room, and it's you and it's 5 other people.
Man.
5 on 1. And you walk in there with no doubt in your mind that you about to beat the brakes on
They stuck in there with you.
And it ain't the Henny talking.
Yeah, they stuck in there with you.
And it ain't, you know what I mean? And it ain't the Henny talking. You know what I mean?
That's what Bruce Lee said.
You know?
That's what Bruce Lee said. He said when Bruce Lee was in a room, he said, you know what? I don't fear that I'm stuck in a room with y'all. You should fear that you stuck in a room with me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And commits to do work.
So imagine that situation of having 501 against you, and you have supreme confidence that the Lord, your power, is going to help you get through the situation because you know you're fighting for His will.
That's what the Lord wants.
Yeah.
The Lord does not want no. Well, I don't know if I'm gonna. The Lord, like, look,
Have supreme confidence.
I'm on your side, and look, the scripture say nothing. If the Lord be with me, who could be against me?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now,
That's right.
It's just literally putting that in your mind, like literally walking in any scenario situation. Like, look, how about? I don't care if I'm locked in a prison. I don't care if I'm my head in the guillotine. Even if my head get cut off, the Lord is with me.
Yeah. The Hanukkah is the ultimate victory celebration. It's when you get into your victory mindset.
Yeah.
You know, cultivate that victory mindset during these next few days, during this next week. You know, remember your forefathers, man. Remember the faith that they have and emulate that. Because that same power that helped them help you. You know, it's not time for Esau to win. It's time for him to lose. Man.
That's right.
I'm saying that's why this account is so inspirational.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because even with the situation with Esther, bro, when we be about to be completely wiped out,
bro,
you know what I'm saying?
It's heavy. It's heavy. You got Hanukkah, you got Purim, then you got Passover, man. It's all victory,
bro.
So you know we exclaiming victory, you know, through the spirit power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua over this place,
and that's why faith is so important. You know what I'm saying? When you can go back and read those accounts. Get the spiritual aspect of it. Hear about what happened. Knowing that's coming for you. It's all neatly packaged. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In the scrolls.
Yeah. That's the comforter.
Yep.
That's Yahushua said, look, I'm gonna bring I'm gonna deliver the comfort. That's it. And having an understanding. You know. I had a quick precept. 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 1 and 2. This second epistle, beloved, I now write unto you, in both which I stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance, that ye may be mindful of the words which were spoken before by the holy prophets, and of the commandment of us.
What were the prophets talking about? They were talking about the glory of the Lord, the prophecies, what's coming. You know what I'm saying? Getting you ready, opening the door for repentance, right?
Kingdom.
How much more now? I'm saying, how much more now? We always talk about how people always say it's been the end of the world. No. Everybody ain't had that red button they can stand on. That red button here now. You gonna have to deal. Yeah, all that putting it off. No. It's not for a museum. It's for your ass.
Real talk. All right, so let's go back to First Maccabees 4, right? Let's go back to First Maccabees 4.
All right, back in verse 33, it says, 32, it says, make them to be of no courage, and cause the boldness of their strength to fall away, and let them quake at their destruction. Cast them down with the sword of them that love thee, and let all those that know thy name praise thee with thanksgiving.
This is the real Thanksgiving.
Straight up, yeah, straight up. That's it.
Let's go.
Real talk, man.
Verse 34, so they joined battle, and there were slain of the host of Lysias about 5,000 men. Even before them were they slain. Now when Lysias saw his army put to flight, and the manliness of Judas' soldiers, and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, he went to Antiochia, I think I'm saying that right, and gathered together a company of strangers, and having made his army greater than it was, he purposed to come again.
So he went and got mercenary armies from the heathen roundabout. That's what Esau's doing. He's going to Moab. He's going to Ammon. He's going to these other nations and try to work to remove our blessing. Right? Same thing, man. Esau's always been doing this. Go ahead.
And he purposed to come again unto Judea. Then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. Upon this, all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into the Mount Zion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altars profaned, and the gates burnt up, and the shrubs grew in the courts as in a forest, or in one of the mountains, yea, and the priests' chambers pulled down, they rent their clothes and made great lamentation, and cast ashes upon their heads, and fell down flat to the ground upon their face, and blew an alarm with the trumpet, and cried towards heaven.
Can you just imagine, just think about the road, or think about Walking Dead, and how the city looks. You know, there's shrubs coming out the streets. You know what I'm saying? Building got weeds growing out the windows.
Mm-hmm.
They looked at the temple, and the temple was absolutely just desolate.
Mm-hmm.
Shrubs growing where the altar is,
Yeah.
weeds.
Yeah.
Probably had animals up in there, just little critters running around and stuff. It was like, God, you know what I'm saying? Like, man, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. It had been marked up with pig's blood. They turned it into a harlot temple.
Yeah.
So it's basically a strip club, and so it was turned out.
Damn.
It was turned out. So it was turned into a club. Basically.
Yeah, if there was a little bit more on that commentary on the
Yeah.
about the temple.
Yeah, I wanted to get a little bit more into it before we went to that point, and then we finish it off about how the temple had to be cleansed.
Kind
But what verse you at?
Let me see. Verse 41.
Read down to 48,
Verse 40.
and then get your commentary out.
All right, verse 41, it says, Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleansed the sanctuary and bare out the defiled stones unto an unclean place.
Mm-hmm.
And when as they consulted,
So the elect for that time was chosen, right? Go ahead.
verse 44, and when as they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profane, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had defiled it. Wherefore they pulled it down and laid up the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them.
Until there was a prophet that was to come and let them know, okay, this is how we're going to move forward. Go ahead.
Verse 47, then they took the whole stones according to the law and built a new altar according to the former. And they made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple and hallowed the courts.
Right. So they knew. All right. This was just a statement being made. Right? Go ahead. Keep reading.
It said that, if I may remember, it said that, and they laid up stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to show what should be done to them. So they took the stones. They didn't destroy them or anything. They took them and they laid them up. It makes me think of, and he mentioned the prophet. It makes me think of Yahushua.
Yeah.
When he mentioned, look, we are the lively, through the Spirit, we are the lively stones.
Mm-hmm.
We are the stones of the tabernacle.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's heavy, bro.
Yeah.
So
Because we were defiled and then we were cleansed. Right? We are those stones.
Wow. I just never caught that, back then. So
Right?
Dang.
But get the commentary that you have real quick out.
Yeah, when we were reading up earlier, we were talking about how desolate the temple was, and a couple more of the bullet points. It says, under Antiochus, the temple was turned into a house of prostitution. Under Antiochus, the altar of burnt offerings was turned into an altar unto the Greek god Zeus.
Yeah, or Jupiter.
Yep.
This they call it's Jupiter Olympus. when you read it in the Maccabees. But Jupiter is Zeus. It's Roman.
Yep.
Roman is Zeus, I believe. And,
Yeah, Zeus is
Greek
Greek.
is Jupiter.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
Amun Ra. It's the
Mhm.
same thing. You know, I was actually researching it the other weekend, so it's all the same shit. Dang.
Yep. It says under Antiochus, pigs were sacrificed upon the great altar, and under him 80,000 Jews were killed, and an equal number were sold as slaves. You see here. So yeah, that was pretty much the point on that one.
Okay.
All right, back in First Maccabees 4 and verse 49, it says, "They made also new holy vessels, and into the temple they brought the candlestick and the altar of burnt offering and of incense in the table. And upon the altar they burned incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlestick they lighted sloppily, that they might give light in the temple. Furthermore, they set the loaves upon the table and spread out the vials and finished all the works which they had began to make.
Mm-hmm.
Now on the 5th and 12th day, 20th day of the 9th month, which is called the month of Cashew,
Mm-hmm.
in the 100.
And we're in that month right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're in that month right now. All right. Go ahead.
It says in the 140th and 8th year, they rose up betimes in the morning and offered sacrifices according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they had made. Look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it. Even in that was it dedicated with songs and citrons and harps and cymbals.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 55, then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the God of heaven, who had given them good success.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days and offered burnt offerings with gladness and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed and hanged doors upon them. Thus was there very great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathens was put away.
Boom. So the reproach of the heathen for that moment was put away. I'm going to go back to ancient.eu or worldhistory.org. Skip back down to that section that's called rebellion and go all the way down. It says, Judah was severely outnumbered. However, the familiarity of Judea was a huge advantage for the Israelite armies. Using the sleight of hills and superior knowledge of the area, they outmaneuvered the Seleucids, and slowly they picked them off. Finally, they came to a battle. Judah had gathered around 7,000 Israelite rebels, but still they were outnumbered by at least 5 to 1. As Judah stood there looking at the masses, so the story goes, he prayed to the Most High for victory. The Israelite people overcame the massive difference in manpower to secure an almost impossible victory over the Seleucid Empire and over Antiochus. After the feast, Antiochus' armies were devastated. They met again with Judas's armies. They met again when Judas's armies was at the gates of Jerusalem, but it was a much shorter battle. The Seleucids were bereft of hope as Judah drove the enemy out of the holy city. The Jewish army had defeated Lysias. When Judah and his brothers went to the temple, he saw the destruction and the defilement that Antiochus caused upon it and was overwhelmed with grief. Mm-hmm. All right. First Maccabees 4 and 36 through 40, which we just read. It says on December 25th, 165 BCE, the months of work clearing and cleaning the temple was finally rededicated to the Most High. The celebrations continue for 8 days, is known to this day as the celebration of Hanukkah, right? And it wasn't long after this period when Antiochus actually died, sometime after that. Let me see what else. Let's hit on that.
They say everything is so they saying Hanukkah is Christmas, because they say Christmas is supposed to be
That's what
December.
they call it. They call it Hanukkah. They say it's pretty much like They say it's pretty much Christmas.
They got it all confused. They blended a whole bunch of different ideologies and said it was Jesus' birthday.
Yeah, that sounds like that. That's supposed to be his birthday and all that.
Yeah, it just depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
It literally depends on who you ask.
Man.
Yeah. And to show you how, even how Judas Maccabees was deified in a way, But then, you can imagine how those stories kind of got crossed up and everything in that time period, You want to finish on that?
Okay.
Yeah, we can finish this last bit of First Maccabees 4. You know what? Hold that. Read this right here.
This is 2 Maccabees 10:1. All right, it reads, Now Maccabeus and his company, the Lord guiding them, recovered the temple and the city. But the altars which the heathen had built in the open street, and also the chapels, they pulled down. And having cleansed the temple, they made another altar, and striking stones, they took fire out of them, and offered a sacrifice after 2 years, and set forth incense, and lights, and shewbread. When that was done, they fell flat down and besought the Lord that they might come no more into such troubles. But if they sinned any more against him, that he himself would chasten them with mercy, and that they might not be delivered unto the blasphemous or barbarous nations. Now upon the same day that the strangers profaned the temple, on the very same day was cleansed again, even the 25th day of the same month, which is Caslu. And they kept the 8 days which with gladness, as in the Feast of the Tabernacles.
So they did it like the Feast of Tabernacles, right? This is why. Keep reading.
Remembering that not long before they had held the Feast of the Tabernacles, when as they wandered in the mountains and dens like beasts.
So that year for the Feast of Tabernacles, they was hiding in dens like beasts, So they was like, you know what, we're gonna have this celebration. We're gonna set it up. We're gonna do 7 days. Cause what is the Feast of Tabernacles? How long is that celebration? It's the same amount of time.
Okay.
Where you go through, they set up tents, right? You set up tents and you have a celebration, right?
That's right.
So that's why it says, as in the Feast of Tabernacles. It doesn't mean it's the same thing, It's just like I described to my kiddos. I said, when you see when it says as in, it's like saying like. It's like, man, I went to the fair and rode the roller coaster. It was just like Six Flags.
You wasn't there.
I wasn't. I was at the fair, not Six Flags, but I'm likening it. So I could say, I was at the fair, and I rode a roller coaster as in, or as if I were at Six Flags.
The simile.
See that, and you'll see that in the scriptures, and people will get confused. It's likening something where you see that right there. Okay, that was the end of the lesson nugget. There you go. If you made it to this point in the lesson, congratulations, you got a nugget.
I tell you what, in Sunday school, bro, that stuck with me. They say the simile is a comparison using the words like or as. Like that's literally something that's stuck in my brain. Like I already know, like that's what it is, bro.
There you go, Chan. All right, so let's just go back to that and just finish reading.
All right, continuing on verse 7, it reads, Therefore they bare branches, and fair boughs, and palms also, and sang psalms unto him that had given them good success in cleansing his place. They ordained also by a common statute and decree that every year those days should be kept of the whole nation of the Jews.
So they made it a holiday. They declared, like, you know what, let's do this. Go ahead.
Continuing on verse 9. And this was the end of Antiochus, called Epiphanes. Now will we declare the acts of Antiochus, am I saying this right, Eupator? Who was the son of the wicked man, gathering briefly the calamities of the wars.
We can stop there. And if you want to go read this, it's going to give you a brief summary of everything that went down. And you can definitely go read it there in 2 Maccabees, the 10th chapter. I highly suggest you go read it. But just for the sake of time and everything, that basically was the stories around and surrounding the Feast of Dedication, Hanukkah, how it came to be. It's a story of victory, overcoming, us defeating our enemies and being able to glorify Yahweh. And by Shem Yahweh Shai, we're going to be able to do that soon. So With that, man, we're gonna give all praise and glory to
Yahweh, Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem, Kakadash.
double honors once again to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to Yakim out there pushing the word in sincerity and truth. Shalom.
Shalom.